They say you can feel a storm coming before it hits. The air shifts. The quiet gets too loud. That's how it felt walking into that glass-walled conference room at 9:03 a.m. on a Tuesday. I knew something was off. I didn't know my entire identity was about to be reclassified as liability. My name is David Mercer. I'm 41, or I was then. Vice President of Client Partnerships at Harlan & Company, a boutique strategy firm that built its reputation on one thing: relationships. My job, my real job, wasn't sales or retention or whatever box they filed me under. It was knowing people. I knew their kids' names, their anniversaries, their dogs, their pain points. I knew when to ask questions and when to just shut up and listen. That's how we got referrals. That's how we grew. I didn't recognize the woman who called the meeting. Elizabeth Carr, our new COO, had been with the company for exactly 6 weeks. Fresh from Silicon Valley. She never used a pen, always clicked through spreadsheets like she was playing a piano solo no one else could hear. She didn't look up when I entered. "David," she said flatly, motioning to the chair opposite her. I sat. She clicked a few more cells, sighed, then finally met my eyes. Hers were glassy and hard, like she'd been trained to suppress emotion for efficiency. Behind her, on the wall-mounted screen, a dashboard glowed. Charts, KPIs, projections. "You're a single point of failure," she said, like she was telling me it might rain this afternoon. "Your client relationships, while effective, do not scale." I blinked, not sure I'd heard her right. "I'm sorry." "We can't automate you," she went on, already turning back to her screen. "Your accounts depend too much on you. That creates risk." I laughed softly. "Risk?" "Elizabeth, I've brought in more than half our referral pipeline the last 2 years. Those relationships don't just walk away." "Exactly," she said, cutting me off. "They're tethered to you, not to the company. Which means if you leave, we bleed." She slid a stack of documents across the table. Severance, exit paperwork, an NDA, of course. "I'm not leaving," I said, half standing. "You are," she said, not cruelly, just factually. "Effective immediately." There was no argument, no appeal. The decision had already passed through legal, through HR, through whatever algorithm told her I was expendable. I sat back down, looked at the paper. My name was already typed in bold. It felt like reading my own obituary. I smiled, because it was the only weapon I had left. I reached out, shook her hand. It was cold, efficient. Then I stood, tucked the papers under my arm, and walked out without saying another word. The elevator ride down was the longest of my life, even though it was only 6 floors. I watched my reflection in the mirrored wall. My tie was crooked, my mouth was tight. I looked like someone else's failure. On the street, the noise of the city hit me like a slap. Horns, footsteps, voices, all of it kept moving, indifferent to the fact that I'd just lost something I'd spent a decade building. The drive home was quiet. I didn't turn on music, didn't call anyone. My phone buzzed twice, probably Mark from sales, wondering what the hell just happened. I let it go to voicemail. I couldn't speak yet. I wasn't ready to hear my own voice crack. When I pulled into my driveway, I didn't get out of the car right away. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel like it might keep me grounded. My wife, Lena, was home. Her car was in the garage. She'd probably be prepping lunch, humming something under her breath. I wasn't ready to go inside and say the words, "I got fired." I wasn't ready to explain how it happened so fast, or why I hadn't seen it coming. I thought about the first deal I ever closed at Harlan. It was a local bank, small potatoes, but it mattered. I'd met the client at a charity 5K. We talked about his knee injury, his son's soccer team, 2 weeks later, I had a signed contract and a handshake. No pitch deck, no cold call, just connection. I remembered my mentor, Paul, who took a chance on me when I was still a little too rough around the edges. People buy from people, he always said, not logos. He died 3 years ago. Stroke. Sudden. Sometimes I still imagined what he'd say if he saw the way the firm was going. They're replacing people with platforms now. Human nuance with digital logic. I was a relic. An emotional artifact that didn't fit on a spreadsheet. They didn't fire me because I failed. They fired me because I couldn't be cloned. I finally stepped out of the car when the sun dipped low enough that it painted the house in gold. Lena met me at the door. She smiled. I smiled back, kissed her cheek. I didn't tell her yet. Not that day. Instead, I poured myself a whiskey, sat in the backyard and watched the wind move through the trees. I didn't cry, didn't scream, but something in me cracked. Quietly, cleanly, not shattered. Not yet. I thought I'd feel free. That's what they say happens when you finally step off the hamster wheel. More time, less stress, a chance to reset. But the morning after I was let go, I woke up at 6:15 like always, showered, shaved, and put on a button-down shirt before I remembered I didn't have anywhere to go. I poured coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and stared out the window like a man waiting for a train that wasn't coming. No meetings, no emails, no fires to put out. I opened my phone instinctively, thumb hovering over the Slack icon. Dead. Logged out. No access. I typed my company email into the login screen just to check. Invalid credentials. Then I checked my LinkedIn profile out of curiosity. They'd already updated it. My role at Harlan & Company now read, Former Vice President of Client Partnerships. No announcement, no tribute post, just a silent reclassification. It felt like I'd been buried in an unmarked grave. By the third day, the silence started to rot. I got a call from Nate, a guy from the accounts team. Hey man, he said, awkward, low-voiced, like someone calling after a funeral. Clients are asking where you went. I waited for him to say more, but he didn't. They didn't tell anyone you were gone, he added finally. Just acted like you disappeared. I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to make him more uncomfortable, so I told him I was good. Taking some time, I said, clearing my head. I even threw in a fake laugh. You know, the whole self-care thing. But after I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling. I hadn't just lost a job. I'd been erased, deleted from a system I helped build. Clients started reaching out, quietly, cautiously. A text from one of my longest, "Hey, I tried reaching you through the usual channel." No answer. Everything okay? I stared at the screen for a long time before turning my phone over. I wasn't ready, because if I responded, I'd have to explain. And if I explained, I'd have to admit that all those years of birthdays remembered, crises navigated, midnight calls taken, they hadn't mattered. At least not to the people signing paychecks. Lena noticed the shift before I did. She started making suggestions. You could consult or teach. You always said you wanted to mentor younger people. I nodded, smiled, but my stomach turned every time she used the word move on. Move on from what? From being useful? From the work that used to give my life structure and meaning? I wasn't ready to sit in cafes with a laptop pretending that made me whole again. I tried reestablishing a routine, gym in the mornings, groceries in the afternoon. Some days I'd read or walk the trail near the house, but it felt performative, like I was cosplaying as a person who was okay. Then, about 2 weeks after everything ended, I got a call from Marissa, one of the few people I still trusted at the firm. She didn't waste time. Clients are starting to bail, she said, quietly. You didn't hear it from me. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Why? They replaced your role with a portal. AI-generated onboarding messages, automated email cadences, calendar syncs. No people. I closed my eyes. I could already see it. Cold, efficient, impersonal. Everything Elizabeth loved. They're calling it Client Synergy 2.0, Marissa said, voice dripping with sarcasm. But it's a mess. One guy said he got a birthday email 3 times, on the wrong day. I let out a laugh before I could stop it. Honestly, David, she continued, they're realizing too late that what you did wasn't replaceable. That should have felt good to hear. But it didn't. Not really. It just made the silence louder. Later that night, I sat in my study staring at my bookshelf. I used to keep handwritten notes from clients there. Thank you cards, little gestures, old school stuff. I took them down one by one, read them. Some made me smile. Others stung. Thanks for making me feel like more than just a contract. You were the only one who really listened. Your call came at the exact right time. You saved the account. That was the art. That was the work. But somewhere, someone decided it didn't matter. That what I brought to the table couldn't be measured, and therefore couldn't be scaled. I didn't respond to the texts. Not yet. I wasn't sure who I was now, without the title, without the backing of a company name. I wasn't ready to be David Mercer, freelance human being. But something was stirring under the surface. Not anger, at least not yet. Something colder, sharper. Clarity. The first call came on a Thursday. I was in the garage, fixing the damn leaf blower I never used, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Figured it was spam, or someone wanting to refinance my non-existent student loans. But something made me answer. David? It's Ron Castell from Sky Harbor. What the hell happened? His voice hit me like a flood. Ron had been with us, with me, for 7 years. I helped him through a merger, talked him down when he thought about pulling his contract after a bad Q3. He was one of the good ones, steady, loyal, practical. They treated you like a ghost, he said. We got an email saying you'd transitioned out of the organization. That's it. One line. I kept my voice calm, even though my hand was gripping the phone like it might break. That's basically what happened. He didn't respond for a second, just breathed. You built our entire account. You saved it twice. And now they're sending us pre-written quarterly updates from someone named Kelsey, who's never spoken to me before. I let the silence stretch. I just wanted to check in, he added. Make sure you're all right. I thanked him, told him I was okay, which was only half a lie. He offered to connect again when I was ready. That phrase stuck with me, when I was ready, like I'd been knocked off a horse and everyone was waiting to see if I'd stand up again. In the following weeks, more messages rolled in. Some emails, some calls, a couple of LinkedIn DMs from people who never used to message me directly. Clients I hadn't heard from since before the pandemic were suddenly reaching out. One by one, they said the same thing. It's different now. Harlan and Company had rolled out a loyalty program. Automated points systems, tiered client badges, some kind of reward marketplace with gift cards and branded mugs. A client told me they received a $500 Amazon voucher after their annual review call. I didn't want a gift card, he said. I just wanted to talk to someone who gave a damn. That one stuck. The COO was treating client relationships like software licenses, replaceable, automatable, click-through experiences. But people aren't experiences. They remember who picks up the phone at 10 p.m. They remember when you make them feel heard, especially when everything else is noise. Marissa called me again, this time more urgent. They're bleeding, David. The board's asking questions. About me? About the numbers. Revenue's down. Referrals dried up. A few accounts have walked. I didn't say anything. "They're scrambling now," she said. "You were the glue. They're realizing that too late." I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good. Vindication has a bitter taste, but it's still satisfying. Still, I hadn't said anything publicly. I hadn't posted some dramatic exit story on LinkedIn. I hadn't dragged anyone's name through the dirt. I let the silence do the work for me. Turns out, silence carries more weight when you've spent your life speaking up. The resentment simmered. It wasn't just that they let me go. It was how easily they convinced themselves I was replaceable, as if trust was a feature, as if relationships could be versioned and rolled out quarterly. I tried writing down what I felt, not for anyone else, just for me. A single page, no formatting, just a sentence I couldn't get out of my head. I wasn't the failure. I was the fabric. I folded the paper and slid it into my desk drawer. One morning, with no particular plan, I drove out to a lake about an hour north. No agenda, just me, a borrowed fishing rod, and a cooler with a sandwich and 2 beers. I hadn't gone fishing in over 10 years. I barely remembered how to tie the knots. But it wasn't about catching anything. I stood on the shore, casting out into still water. The sun was just beginning to rise. Wind skimmed the surface in slow circular whispers. I felt it move across my neck, down my arms. For the first time in months, I wasn't performing. I wasn't explaining myself. I wasn't apologizing for being who I was. Intuitive, human, relational. I let myself feel the anger. Not the loud, shouting kind. The deeper kind. The kind that builds when someone tells you your life's work doesn't count because it can't be quantified. That you're not efficient enough. That connection isn't value. They were wrong. I knew it now. I didn't need a title to prove it. I didn't catch a single fish that day. But when I left the lake, I left with something better. I knew I wasn't done. The idea didn't come like a lightning bolt. It came slowly, like water seeping into the cracks. Quiet, persistent, impossible to ignore. I wasn't interested in revenge. That kind of fire burns out too fast. I wanted to build something, not in their shadow, but away from it. Something alive. Something true. I started with a list. Names I knew by heart. Clients I'd walked through acquisitions, downturns, market pivots. People who'd trusted me, not because a contract said they had to, but because we'd built something more durable than paper. I called a few. Not with a pitch, just with the truth. The first meeting was at a small cafe downtown. Just me and Ron Castell from Sky Harbor. He ordered a black coffee. I had green tea I didn't even drink. "I've been waiting for this," he said before I could speak. "You starting something?" I nodded. "Thinking about it." He smiled. "Well, I'm in." That was all it took. I didn't even have a name yet. No logo, no LLC, just a notebook and some grit. Over the next few weeks, I met with a handful of others. Some I knew would come. Others surprised me. They'd left Harlan quietly. Some already frustrated. Others disillusioned by the direction. Everyone said the same thing. "We miss working with someone who gave a damn." That line came up so often, I nearly printed it on the homepage. I sketched the model in longhand, the way I used to map accounts in the early days. Human first, high trust, no bloated systems, no quarterly gimmicks, just real partnerships, built the way they were supposed to be, slowly, with intention, low scale by design, quality over quantity. I didn't want 100 clients. I wanted 10 that actually meant something. I called it counterweight. It was the word that had haunted me since that day in the glass-walled room. "You're a single point of failure." Her voice had been clinical, almost bored, but I'd come to realize the truth she couldn't see. The point of failure was the system, not the soul inside it. Counterweight was my response, the balance to everything she thought business should be. Clients began to come over, one at a time. Quiet moves, no drama, just simple transitions. A few brought teams, a few brought friends. I didn't advertise. I didn't post on LinkedIn. I didn't need to. Word traveled the way it always had, person to person, voice to voice. I worked out of my home office at first. Just me, a desk, and the hum of something real starting to breathe. I felt like myself again, not because I had control, but because I had clarity. Then came the message. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but I knew the tone. Corporate polite, executive cautious. David, the board would like to speak with you regarding potential advisory work during this transition period. Would you be open to a brief conversation? I laughed before I finished reading it. Transition period. That's what they called the bleeding. Clients leaving, numbers falling, morale in the basement. Rumor was, Elizabeth was doubling down on automation. More AI, more dashboards, fewer people. I waited a day, maybe two. Then I called back. The voice on the line was smooth, male, maybe legal. We're restructuring, he said, and your insight would be incredibly valuable. Is Elizabeth still there? I asked. There was a pause. Yes. I let the silence stretch. She's the one who said relationships don't scale, I said. Remember that? He cleared his throat. Yes. Well, You already have someone who believes that, I said. And then I hung up. I don't know what reaction they expected. Gratitude, rescue, nostalgia. I gave them nothing. That night, I poured a glass of bourbon and sat on the back porch while Lena watered the basil plant we never used. She looked at me over her shoulder. You did the right thing? I nodded. I think I finally understand, she said. You didn't just lose a job back then. You lost the place you built. No, I said. I didn't lose it. I just took the wrong piece of it with me. She smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I felt still. Counterweight was small, but it was solid. I knew every client by name again. I picked up the phone instead of scheduling emails. I sent handwritten notes instead of survey links. I listened more than I spoke. I wasn't chasing growth. I was anchoring it. It wasn't revenge. It was return. To something real. To something I could stand on. And I was just getting started. 6 months goes by fast when you're building something that feels like it matters. I blinked, and counterweight wasn't an idea anymore. It was a living thing. Small, deliberate, and strong. No slide decks, no office ping-pong tables. Just a handful of clients I knew by name, and a calendar full of meetings I actually looked forward to. We didn't scale. We deepened. Every conversation had weight. Every handshake had history. There were days I missed the buzz of a bigger office, the energy of a team sprinting toward a quarterly target. But then I'd remember the hollow click of that conference room door closing behind me. I'd remember her spreadsheet eyes and that cold line. Relationships don't scale. And I'd get back to work. I didn't keep track of Harlan and Company out of spite. It just kept showing up. In headlines, in texts from old colleagues, in whispers from the industry. I wasn't the only one who noticed something had gone off track. Then came the push notification. I was making lunch, turkey sandwich, black coffee, when the words popped up on my phone. Harlan and Company COO. Elizabeth Carr resigns amid restructuring. The article was light on details. A vague quote from the CEO about strategic realignment. A generic thank you paragraph about her contributions to modernization. I already knew the translation. It hadn't worked. The gift cards, the automation, the loyalty platform, none of it stuck. Clients left, revenue dipped, the board lost patience. She was moving on, reportedly to a large analytics firm that prized efficiency above all else. Somewhere she wouldn't have to deal with human variables like me. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clear. The system that let her push people out like data points was finally breaking under its own weight. Maybe that was inevitable. Later that night, I got an email from an old colleague, Mark, from the sales team. Subject line: "You were right. I hadn't spoken to him since I left." The body of the message was short. "You were never the failure. She just didn't know how to measure what you did." I stared at it for a long time. The kind of message I used to need. The kind I used to wait for, ache for. I reread it once. Then I deleted it. Not because it wasn't kind. It was. But because I didn't need it anymore. Not to believe in what I'd built. Not to know what I was worth. The next morning, I drove to a client's site in the suburbs. A small financial firm I'd onboarded personally 2 months back. Nothing flashy. Family-owned. Honest people. They'd come over after their old Harlan rep misspelled their CEO's name in an automated onboarding email. Twice. I pulled into the lot 5 minutes early. No nerves, no posturing. Just the quiet steadiness of someone who knows why he's there. Inside, the receptionist smiled. "Morning, Mr. Mercer." "David," I said, smiling back. "Always just David." She buzzed me in without asking who I was there to see. That kind of familiarity, that kind of trust, was the product of months of doing things right, slowly, the long way, the human way. I walked down the hall and into the meeting room. No projection screen, no pitch deck waiting on a USB, just 3 people at a round table, coffee, notepads, handshakes ready. "Glad you're here," one of them said. "So, are we starting today?" another asked. "No," I said, setting down my notebook. "We already started. Today, we continue." We sat. We talked. We didn't measure ROI or track user flow. We talked about what kept them up at night, what they wanted more of, what they were afraid to admit they didn't know yet. The stuff that never makes it into a quarterly report. It was simple. It was slow. It was right. And it was mine. At some point during the meeting, someone cracked a joke about automation. "You didn't bring an AI assistant, did you?" "Nope," I said. "Just me." "Hope that's enough." They laughed. I did too. Because it was enough. I was enough. The room quieted. The kind of quiet that means people are thinking, not checking their phones. That's when I knew we were where we needed to be. There's no sign outside my house, no branded hoodies, no pop-up notifications reminding me to circle back. Just my name, a phone, and a promise to listen better than anyone else. And that's enough. More than enough. I didn't return to prove anyone wrong. I returned to do it right. On my terms. And I'm just getting started.